Meet Ningxuan, F-rank God Card Master. The teacher is calling this idiot out by name because their nation already lost 3 straight international fights, and this moron is napping through class, sitting on the floor like the fate of his entire nation is somebody else's shift. His classmates are calling him worthless right to his face, when suddenly the selection lights this loser up like in front of everyone. The teacher is already writing off the nation as a lost cause. Every single person in this room is processing the same horrifying thought. But what none of them know is a goddess card system just bound itself to this dumbass, and it's not some bronze tier gotcha pull either, because he's staring at a system panel that says S-rank goddess cards available. And right there you can watch the switch flip behind his eyes. This man isn't here to survive. He's here to make the entire world remember Da Xia's name. The matchup goes live. Rahul from Asan Nation B rank. Ningxuan, F rank. On paper, this is a public execution, and Rahul walks out dressed like a pharaoh on vacation, already mocking the F rank they sent him. His fans in the crowd are treating this like a comedy special. Meanwhile, Da Xia's officials look like they're sitting at their own funeral, because one more loss and the nation literally ceases to exist. Disasters collapse everything. But Ningxuan steps onto that arena floor like a man holding a winning hand nobody else can see. Rahul's over there cackling, telling him an F rank should just forfeit and save himself the embarrassment. Then he flexes his god card like he's showing off a trophy. Ningxuan doesn't even unfold his arms, just stands there letting this man monologue. Rahul activates his card, and a B-rank god materializes on the field wrapped in darkness and killing intent. But look at Ningxuan's face. That is not a man who's worried. He's looking at a B-rank god like someone just showed him a tutorial boss. He pulls up his system and tells the entire arena to pay very close attentions, because he's got a full hand of goddess cards and every single one is a problem. A golden card erupts above the arena like the sky just cracked in half, and the S-rank goddess Changxi steps through the golden light, and I need everyone to understand what just happened. She descends holding a rabbit, hair flowing, absolutely zero urgency, and the artist did not have to go this hard, but thank God they did. A lunar tree blooms behind her on the battlefield and the temperature in the arena drops because that is an S-rank deity. Scoreboard updates. B-rank god versus S-rank Changyi. That's not a matchup, that's a sentencing. The girl in the crowd cannot physically process what she's witnessing, because in all of recorded history only 2 nations have ever fielded S-rank gods and Daya was never one of them. Rahul is shaking because an F-rank cardmaster just outdrew his entire civilization's best. The old Da Xia leader has tears streaming down his face, whispering that the nation is saved. Even Ningxuan is a little floored because honestly she might be the most beautiful thing this kid has ever seen. He bows and asks Chang'e to handle business on behalf of Da Xia, and that expression says she didn't need to be asked. Rahul tries to steal himself, but the math stopped adding up the second she appeared. His god throws everything into one massive fire attack because it's all or nothing now, and Chang'e doesn't even glance at it. Standing there like the moon itself wouldn't bend for a B rank. The opposing god gets erased from the field screaming. Rahul is standing there hollow because Da Xia was never supposed to have this kind of firepower. The board reads Da Xia victory and this kid is standing next to a literal goddess like it's a normal afternoon. But then reality slaps him. If he'd lost, the cardmaster dies too. That girl in the stands is speechless because this moron actually pulled it off. And Da Xia's fans are going completely feral because a miracle just landed in the middle of their darkest hour. Round 2 goes up immediately. The system drops him a fat victory reward, more card draws, and his brain catches fire because he just realized winning feeds the gacha. So this absolute maniac cups his hands and screams to the arena that one win is nothing because he's going for a clean sweep and he wants every single person watching to hear it. That girl in the audience is on her feet pointing at the arena like she just found her new religion. And even the analysts admit an S-rank summoner has every right to be this insufferably cocky. Ningxuan turns to Chang'e and asks her to rest in the card while he draws fresh backup. She says to call her whenever he needs, and honestly I would sell my own soul to be the one she's looking at right now. She vanishes into the card and he tucks it against his chest like it's worth more than his own life. But round 2's opponent is a completely different animal. The crowd is freaking out because this is Asan's absolute strongest fighter, the #1 ranked below S rank. And look at that grin. This man is already convinced Ningxuan burned all his luck on the first round. Ningxuan just gives him a smirk that says try me and find out. The warrior drops to one knee and summons his A-rank god card, and Hanuman erupts out of the ground in a wall of fire, cracking the arena floor just by existing. That is not a B rank. That is a genuine threat. Ningxuan's response is a tsunami of ice that drowns half the stage because this impossible fool just pulled another S rank. By Suzhen, the White Snake Lady, S rank goddess #2. And the artist woke up and chose violence with this design. Water meets fire across the battlefield and the gap between S and A is not a gap, it's a different zip code. Board confirms it. Bei Suzhen S rank versus Hanuman A rank. Outclassed again. 2 consecutive S rank goddess summons from an F rank card master. Nobody in recorded history has ever done this and every face in this arena proves it. But the opponent's still standing there telling himself he has a shot. And honestly, the copium is almost respectable. Hanuman beats his chest and screams like a gym bro who brought nothing but cardio to a boss fight. He winds up a fist the size of a small car and launches a column of fire that could cremate the entire arena. But Bai Suzhen just smirks because this foreign trash isn't even worth her effort. She lifts a single hand and frost spirals off her fingertips like it's nothing. That fireball hits her ice wall and evaporates on contact like it was made of wishes. And Hanuman gets gift-wrapped in a tidal wave that treats him like a bath toy. The entire arena is now a frozen wasteland because proportional response is not in this woman's vocabulary. She exhales frost like she's bored, saying this garbage isn't even worth her getting involved. Those eyes say it all. She just deleted a god on live television and felt absolutely nothing. Bai Suzhen returns to her spirit form beside Ning Xuan. Job done, monkey erased. This moron waves at the arena like he just finished taking out the recycling. He holds up her card with a little grin, thinking her temper matches the legends perfectly. The girl in the crowd has completely short-circuited trying to process what she just watched. Scoreboard makes it official. Rival nation forfeits. Deisha wins again. A golden beam splits the sky because every win buffs the entire nation's fortune and reduces disasters. Ning Xuan is already doing the mental math, thinking he needs to fight as many of these as humanly possible. They bring him backstage and introduce the woman running Daisha's arena operations. Then escort this man to Daisha's National Fortune Bureau, which from the entrance alone screams government building that handles actual life or death decisions. Inside it's all polished hallways and glass conference rooms because national defense apparently comes with interior design. An elderly official bows deeply and thanks Ning Xuan on behalf of the entire nation. And this idiot standing by the window has zero idea how to handle a senior citizen bowing to him. He tells the old man it's just his duty and asks if he can keep fighting every single match going forward. Director Long agrees immediately and introduces two people. These are apparently Daya's strongest card masters aside from Ning Xuan. A jack dude who looks like he eats protein for every emotion, and a girl waving like it's her first day at camp. Director Long sits down heavy and admits this is literally all the firepower Daisha has left. Ning Xuan's eyes go wide because he expected a full roster, not a skeleton crew. The reality lands on him like a truck. Daisha's gods have lost their power, the civilization is hanging by a thread, and nobody was coming to fix it. Director Long pulls up a world map and explains that their losing streak triggered natural disasters across the entire country. Even with the recent win, it barely moved the needle. One victory is a band-aid on a bullet wound. Ning Xuan sits there absorbing it, realizing this problem is so much bigger than one arena fight. The two teammates laugh bitterly because other nations have straight up forgotten Daisha's gods even exist. Ning Xuan's jaw tightens. First priority is reversing this civilization's severance before it becomes permanent. Then he asks Director Long for the full breakdown of the global power map. The old man fires up a holographic war table and the whole room turns into a military briefing. Two superpowers sit at the top, both packing S-rank card masters of their own. The girl teammate adds that most nations' gods have gone completely unstable. Basically feral rage machines that only know destruction, like this screaming deity right here. On top of that, a shadowy group called the TNY sect popped up overseas and nobody knows their endgame. Ning Xuan's face says he's storing every piece of this intel for later. But before they can plan anything, the screen behind him goes to static, because Kimchi Nation just challenged Daja to a one-on-one fight on live broadcast. And they didn't just challenge anyone, they called out Ning Xuan by name and rank. The bald teammate looks like someone disrespected his bloodline to his face, but the girl figures it out immediately. This is deliberate. They're attacking while Ning Xuan hasn't recovered, trying to bury him permanently. Director Long's face confirms it. This is a calculated ambush dressed up as a formal challenge, but Ning Xuan just turns with a grin because this fool is genuinely confident he can handle it. Cut to the arena and Kimchi Nation's fighter is already standing there in full black armor like a budget action figure. The girl from the audience is baffled about why such a weak nation would poke this particular bear, because this clown thinks killing Ning Xuan means Daisha's entire territory becomes Kimchi Nation property. That's the actual bet. Matchup board reads Park C B rank versus Ning Xuan S rank. Would you take those odds? Park C isn't shaking though because he's got a support card and a plan nobody saw coming. He holds up a god card showing a deity surrounded by birds and golden leaves, and the art alone says this is not a B rank play. This man grins ear to ear and declares Ning Xuan is already dead. The announcement hits the screen. Kimchi Nation's supreme deity, Dangun. Storm clouds swallow the sky and lightning starts cracking across the arena. Dangun descends in a pillar of golden light with lightning flanking both sides, and that is a god-tier entrance. Park C drops to his knees and bows because even the summoner treats his own god like actual royalty. Dangun's face is pure arrogance. Purple eyes gem on his forehead and the smirk of someone who has never been told no. The girl in the stands is stunned because a nation's supreme god has never appeared in arena combat before this moment. And Dangun's standing there with tiger pauldrons, and that posture radiates the kind of confidence that comes from never losing a single thing. Ning Xuan sizes him up and registers that this god carries genuine S-rank power. This is not a joke anymore. Park C walks right up and points in Ning Xuan's face. He tells him to go ahead and summon those same goddesses from last time, because they'd make perfect concubines for Lord Dangun. That is what this absolute waste of oxygen just said on live television, and something behind Ning Xuan's eyes turns to permafrost. He rips open his system and the air around him shatters like broken glass because now it's personal. He enters the card dimension, surrounded by glowing panels from every direction, and pulls a card that nobody in this arena was prepared for. A dark purple vortex tears the arena floor apart, stone cracking and spiraling waves. The underworld gate opens and the screen flashes. Daisha's god S-rank Meng Po, the lady of forgetting herself, and the crowd erupts into laughter because they just watched a man summon a grandmother to fight a supreme god. But watch Dangun's face right now. He smells reincarnation on her and his grin just flatlined. Ningxuan greets the old lady and helps her stand like she's his own grandma visiting from out of town. Then golden support cards light up behind him like a slot machine that refuses to stop hitting jackpots. Those eyes lock in because the most disrespectful combo in tournament history is loading. He holds up a golden card called Peak Reversion that restores any god to their absolute prime and spawns a clone at full power. That smirk on his face tells you everything about how unfair this is about to get. He raises the card above his head in front of the entire stadium and lets it rip. Golden light detonates across the arena like someone set off a small sun. A hand reaches through the blinding explosion. Mengpo's face glows as centuries of age start melting away. The whole arena vanishes inside a supernova of divine light. And when the light fades, Mengpo in her prime is standing there in golden robes looking like a completely different being. Her young form steps forward in red and white, and nobody in the stadium is laughing anymore. Is this the coldest age reversal glow-up in manhwa history, or is there competition? Some random dude in the stands has literal heart-shaped pupils, and honestly after that transformation, who could blame him? Dangun is livid because the grandma he was about to disrespect just reverse-aged into someone even stronger. He raises both hands to the sky and starts pulling a massive energy sphere out of the storm clouds. Lightning tears through the heavens like the sky itself just picked a side, and Dangun stands floating in the tempest, chains rattling, about to throw everything at a goddess who just got the ultimate factory reset. Mengpo looks out across the arena and she is not even slightly impressed by this weather tantrum. Lightning rips open the heavens because Dangun threw everything he had into one massive strike. And Mengpo is just sitting there in the aftermath like a woman who finished brunch and is deciding on dessert. She lifts a single finger with a little purple flame on the tip, and honestly that is the most disrespectful counter to a god-tier lightning nuke I have ever seen. Because Dangun, the supreme god of an entire nation, is face first in the dirt after one flick. The crowd is getting blasted by the shockwave and every single person in those stands just witnessed a murder on live television. One girl in the audience is pointing at the arena in pure disbelief because he could not block a single move. Dangun is sprawled out on the cracked floor like someone who got sent to the Shadow Realm and the Shadow Realm returned him out of pity. Park Si is drenched in sweat, screaming for his god to get up and use support cards because this man's entire career is flatlining. Dangun drags himself to one knee and the fact that he can even stand after that is honestly respectable. But look at those eyes right now. This fool is not thinking about surrendering, he is thinking about escalating. Park Si pulls out 2 glowing support cards because this loser is about to funnel every resource his nation has into round 2. Dangun throws his arms wide as blue flames engulf the arena and declares himself the supreme god of his entire nation. That grin says he genuinely believes he cannot lose, and honestly the delusion is almost admirable. He screams into the sky and starts pulling lightning directly into his body like a battery that refuses to accept it is already dead. A pillar of golden energy tears the entire arena apart from below, and the rocks are flying like someone detonated the whole stadium. And now Dangun is fully armored in gold, wielding a blade that is literally on fire with divine power. But here's where it gets ugly. Look in his eye. Those are screaming faces. He is absorbing his own nation's fortune to power himself up. Park Si drops to his knees in tears begging Dangun to stop because this idiot is burning his own country's future to win a single fight. And Dangun does not care. Not even a little. He just declared that whichever nation falls will fall and it will not be his. Mengpo watches this golden maniac charge at her through a vortex with his sword and she does not flinch. She just shakes her head like a grandmother watching a child throw a tantrum, muttering about how today's gods do not think about the consequences for their descendants. Then she turns to Ningxuan and casually asks for more cards like she is ordering another round at dinner. And Ningxuan is already reaching for them because our boy does not hesitate when grandma asks for ammunition. He slaps down a golden card and it flashes Dangun's name on it like a receipt for services about to be rendered. The card rockets across the arena trailing light behind it and detonates into a golden sphere that swallows half the stadium in raw power. When it clears, there are now 2 Mengpas standing side by side, and if one was a problem, then 2 is a war crime. Watch Dangun's eyes right now, that is not anger anymore. That is a man doing math he does not want to finish, because the clone is staring him down with zero mercy in those eyes, and the original is walking toward him like she has an appointment and he is late. Her hand punches clean through his golden armor, and the sound it makes is the sound of someone's entire national pride crumbling. Dangun turns his head and Mengpo is standing right behind him with a smile that says this was never even a contest. The clone confirms it herself. Her power is equal to the original. That means Dangun just went 2 versus 1 against 2 S-rank goddesses. And it shows because this clown is on his knees, armor cracked, dignity shattered, mumbling about how Dasha should not be able to summon anything this powerful. The scoreboard makes it official. National fortune transfers to Dasha, the most satisfying W in tournament history. Their teammate is losing her mind back at HQ because not only did they win, but historically, any nation that absorbs another's fortune can expand its territory. The big guy on the team is standing there speechless because Dasha just went from a nation people forgot about to a nation that just swallowed someone else's lifeline. And Mengpo reverts to her grandma form because the job is done and grandma does not need to flex anymore. She pulls Ningxuan aside and warns him to be very careful going forward because the other gods still cannot return. Ningxuan closes his eyes and takes that in. The win was massive, but the problem has not changed. The arena empties and a single card floats above the platform as confetti falls and something clicks in his head. His system pops up and the numbers are embarrassing. 0 god card draws left, 1 support draw, and only 5% affinity with the gods. But this fool is standing alone in a stadium he just won and thinking, what if I could summon every single god in Disha? So he goes straight to Director Long and asks the one question nobody expected. How many temples in this country are dedicated to worshipping the gods? Director Long and his assistant exchange a look because the answer is barely any. Most of them were built by regular citizens on their own. And that is when Ningxuan drops the real play. He proposes building a pantheon. One massive hall to worship every god Daxia has ever had. Every single deity, big or small, in one place where the people can honor them properly. And they actually built it. A full-scale traditional temple in the middle of a modern city like a statement carved in stone. Director Long walks Ningxuan through the grounds and tells him every statue inside was built exactly to his specifications. A woman greets them and confirms it is all ready because apparently when the national hero makes a request, the entire government speedruns construction. Ningxuan holds up a golden book, a full encyclopedia of Daxia's gods that he personally oversaw, and the worship can finally begin. He walks through the doors with the whole team behind him and the weight of what he is about to attempt is written all over his face. Inside are massive stone statues of the gods, warriors, deities, guardians, all lined up and staring down at one teenager who bet everything on a prayer. Ningxuan clasps his hands and prays in front of every single one of them with the crowd gathered behind him. He is asking every god of Daxia to protect their people. And one of the statues opens its eyes, glowing gold staring right back at him. Then the entire hall lights up. Every statue, every tier, golden energy flooding down the stairs like the gods just sent a receipt confirming they heard him. This moron actually smiles for the first time in what feels like 50 panels because it worked. And that is not just relief on his face. That is a kid who just got a message from every god in his civilization saying we are still here. Golden light spirals outward from the temple and fires across the entire nation. Dried cracked earth that had been dead for who knows how long suddenly has water running through it again. His assistant bursts in with the report. Every natural disaster across the entire country just vanished simultaneously. Director Long pumps both fists in the air because Daxia finally has a supreme god of its own, and this old man has been waiting his whole life to say that. The pantheon erupts with swirling golden power as every god statue channels energy through the hall like a divine server coming back online. Ningxuan stands at the base looking up at all of them and realizes the gods are using this moment to tell him they never actually left. His system updates and the numbers are climbing. 3 god draws, 3 support draws, and affinity tripled to 15%. The Pantheon is literally a buff machine. He locks in and makes a promise right there. He will not let a single one of these gods down. Now here's where it gets dark. Cut to a red-lit room with 3 figures standing before a demonic statue, and keep your eye on this scene because everything changes. The first one opens his mouth and casually mentions they have already sacrificed nearly 1 million people to awaken their main god. The second one adds that a god may have already manifested in the real world and this smug face is not worried about Daxia at all. But the leader, this man walks forward in red and black with eyes that glow like something that crawled out of a horror game and says they have protection from an outside cult. And that grin right there is the grin of someone who has been planning to invade Daxia long before Ningxuan was ever a factor. Both subordinates bow without a word because when the boss says war, you do not ask questions. Meanwhile, back in Daxia, the doors swing open because our boy has no idea what is coming. He is studying a holographic breakdown of how card masters summon gods because if you can identify the deity, you can pull it. 3 new god cards light up on screen and Daxia might have several more S-rank gods waiting to be discovered. The gacha machine never stops. And then his teammate kicks the door open mid-sentence screaming that something just happened. Ningxuan freezes because that is not the face of someone delivering good news. A dark vortex tears open somewhere across the ocean and whatever was sealed inside just broke free. A massive bloodshot eye rips through the sky with tendrils reaching for the ground while civilians scramble on a beach below it like ants under a magnifying glass. The map confirms it. A black fog is spiraling out from a neighboring nation and heading straight for Daxia's borders. His teammate spells it out. It is altering the weather patterns across the region and the gods of that nation are the ones behind it. Ningxuan looks at Director Long and says what everyone is thinking. The grudge between Daxia and this nation needs to end now. Director Long nods and says deal with the black fog first because the invasion is already at the door. Full war room assembled. Everyone around the table, the vortex on screen, and this is no longer a tournament. This is survival. Storms are swallowing the ocean between the two nations like nature itself picked a side and it was not. The black fog rolls into the first city with lightning tearing through buildings and the sky turns into something out of a disaster movie. And then the enemy reveals what they have been building. An entire army of dark gods hovering in the sky wrapped in purple flames. Dozens of them. With a demon beast looming behind the formation like a raid boss that brought its own raid, the commander grins and gives the order. Kill everything. Swallow Daxia whole. Citizens are screaming in the streets, pointing at the sky, begging for their gods to do something because nobody else can stop this, and the enemy's goddess floats overhead with a dark orb in her hand, whispering that Daxia's gods will never come back. But something streaks across the sky like a golden comet and every person on the ground goes silent. The enemy goddess stops mid-sentence because she recognizes what that light is and the smirk just evaporated off her face. Pangi himself materializes above Daxia holding an axe the size of a city block with a divine halo burning behind him. The creator god just clocked in. He plants his feet, cracks the sky with his presence, and delivers the only warning any invader will ever get. Those who threaten Daxia will die here. And from orbit you can see it. Daxia's temple standing on the continent with a storm of dark energy crashing against its borders. The war for an entire civilization just started and honestly I have never been more hyped in my life. Panga just split the atmosphere like a receipt and the golden shockwave is still rippling from orbit. There he stands, the creator god himself, axe in hand, a ring of divine fire spinning around him like the universe remembers who built it. But here's what nobody expected. Pangi looks at his own army of golden warriors and tells Ningxuan the truth. They are not real gods, they are just fragments of will, echoes of what the gods used to be, and this kid is standing in front of the biggest one like it is a job interview. Pangi stares right through him and says there are more important things to handle, and Ningxuan, to his credit, does not flinch. He asks where all the gods went. Because while he was busy talking to the ghost of the creator god, the Kangming nation just officially declared a national fate battle against Xia, and this fool barely processes the news before the stakes hit him. Whoever loses does not just take an L, the entire nation is watching, every citizen glued to their seats because this is not a tournament anymore. Kangming Nation versus Xia. The scoreboard is up and these two nations have hated each other since before any of them were born. The crowd is already going feral and the first punch has not even been thrown yet. Ningxuan and his teammate walk into the arena and someone is already sizing them up from the other side. Their first fighter steps forward. This guy with the braid is built like a problem that does not leave quietly. She is terrified. You can see it. If they lose even one round, the consequences are permanent. But Ningxuan sends him out anyway. First match, go handle it. He grabs his shoulder and tells him to follow his card guidance exactly. No freelancing. The matchup hits the screen and I need you to see this. Xi Wentian's C rank versus an A rank opponent. That is a 2-tier gap. Both fighters step onto the arena floor and the size of this gap is about to become everyone's problem. The Kangming fighter immediately starts running his mouth, waving his hand around asking if Xia is disrespecting him by sending out trash. Then he summons Yamada no Orochi and the entire arena floods with water as an 8-headed serpent rips out of the ground. S rank. That thing is S rank. An A-class cardmaster just pulled a god that should be above his pay grade. But Wentian does not run. He pulls 3 cards, stares them down and thinks one thing. I cannot embarrass Xia. Ningxuan whispers in his ear to pick the middle card, and the second his finger touches it, the entire arena goes golden. He is holding the Bull Demon King's card and every person in that stadium just lost their collective minds. Wentian clasps his hands together and channels every drop of faith he has left into that summon. The Kangming fighter grins and tells him to surrender while he still can. Says Orochi will be merciful and give him a quick death. Real generous of this absolute clown. He lunges forward like the fight is already won, and then stops dead in his tracks, because what just materialized on the other side of the arena was not supposed to be possible. Orochi's heads are snarling, fangs dripping, fire between its jaws, and the full beast rises out of the ocean with its master riding on top like some kind of kaiju rodeo. But the Bull Demon King does not wait for introductions. He crashes through the serpent heads like a freight train through a picket fence. The scoreboard updates. Yamada no Orochi S rank, Bull Demon King S rank. Even matchup on paper, except it is not even close on the field because the Bull Demon King lifts that spiked mace and calls Orochi an 8-headed bug like it is beneath his time. Ningxuan is watching and the gears in his head are spinning. How did an A-rank card master summon an S-rank god? The answer is sitting right there in the dark. That serpent did not get to S-rank through training. It got there by eating at least 1 million people. The Bull Demon King says it out loud and the entire arena goes silent. Then he raises that mace over his head like a guillotine with a personality and brings it down. The mace rockets toward Orochi like a wrecking ball with personal grudges. Every head tries to bite the mace and every head gets its teeth rearranged for the effort. The collision sends shockwaves ripping across the arena and into the stands. And just like that, the enemy's card cracks and shatters on the ground like dropped pottery. First match. Xia wins. The Bull Demon King stands alone in the ring and the crowd is screaming themselves hoarse. The Kangming fighter is standing there doing math in his head. Even at S rank, the gap between their gods was a canyon. Because the Bull Demon King is not just S rank, he is S rank and offended. The golden silhouette fades back into Wentian's hand like a genie returning to its lamp and the man just pulled off the upset of the century. Someone in the crowd stands up and starts screaming about how Kangming's gods got their power by devouring civilians. Which brings us to round 2 because the enemy is not done and their next fighter drops into the arena like he owns the lease. Xia sends in the girl and she walks out there with her jaw set like she already decided how this ends. Her opponent pulls out a red card and warns her that she is going to regret stepping onto this stage. She closes her eyes, clasps her hands, and blue sparks trail up her fingers as she channels her summon. The golden card hits her palm and there is a smile on her face that says she drew exactly what Ningxuan told her to. Both cards fire off at the same time. Gold pillar versus red pillar lighting up the arena like dueling signal flares. Xia's god materializes. The greedy wolf Star-Lord. Sword drawn, stance immaculate, radiating the kind of composure that makes everyone else look unhinged. He stands there like a man who has never been surprised by anything in his entire existence and does not plan to start now. The enemy's god appears on the other side, red-eyed, crackling with lightning, and already calling Xia's fighters nothing more than burial goods. The Star-Lord does not dignify that with words. He answers with a sword arc wide enough to split the horizon. Blades connect and the arena detonates into red and blue. The enemy god slams down with enough force to crater the floor and red energy spirals outward like a blood-soaked hurricane. But the Star-Lord answers with a vertical thrust that channels something cosmic through his blade. He raises his sword and an entire constellation lights up above him. The sky itself becomes his weapon. The enemy throws up a red dome trying to contain it, and for exactly half a second it looks like it might hold. It does not hold. The star beam punches through that barrier like it was made of wet paper, and the enemy god dissolves, just comes apart at the seams like sand in a windstorm. The Star-Lord kneels in the aftermath, bloodied but breathing, and honestly that might be the coldest win we have seen so far. Round 2. Xia wins. That is a clean sweep going into the final match. The Star-Lord glances back at Ningxuan with a look that says only one thing. Do not let me down, kid. And there he is. Varsity jacket, sneakers, standing alone in a divine arena, about to fight for the fate of his entire nation. He is running the numbers. The last fighter should be packing their supreme god. The enemy raises a glowing red card overhead, and the name on it translates to Eternal Son of 1,000 Summers, which is not ominous at all. Then the rules change. Kangming plays an auxiliary card that lets the card masters fight each other directly. The crowd goes ballistic because they just realize this is not God versus God anymore. This is man versus man with divine powers. A cage drops around both fighters and the floor cracks on impact. Nobody is leaving until someone loses. The enemy's true form erupts. A red vortex swallows the sky behind him and lightning crawls down his silhouette like something that should have stayed sealed. Director Long grips the railing and watches from outside the cage because there is nothing he can do from here. The enemy grins with blood on his teeth and says he has already received the blessing of his main god. His power is comparable to a deity now. But Ningxuan is not shaking. He reaches into the swarm of floating cards around him and finds the one that matters. The card sinks into a red vortex and the air changes temperature. Hutu descends, the earth goddess herself draped in gold and jade, floating through divine clouds like she was born from the sunrise, and I genuinely need a moment. The crowd is in tears, full on sobbing, screaming, begging for the goddess to save them because this is their god answering the call. The enemy does not care. He gathers every ounce of dark power into his body and prepares to end this personally. Ningxuan closes the distance and lands a hit that draws blood, and the enemy genuinely did not expect that from a mortal. This kid looks him dead in the eyes without blinking, and honestly the composure is unreal. The enemy wipes blood from his mouth and the grin is gone, replaced by something far worse. He charges forward with killing intent leaking out of his pores. Red energy erupts from his palm like a detonation aimed at deleting Ningxuan from the timeline. But a massive white tree blooms behind our boy, branches spreading across the arena like a living shield. Hutu's power just activated. The red tendrils crash into the tree and wrap around Ningxuan, but the branches absorb every bit of damage like a divine sponge. The enemy freezes. He recognizes this technique. That belongs to Chang'e. How does a mortal have access to multiple god abilities? Ningxuan rises off the ground wrapped in blue spiraling energy, and the entire arena holds its breath. A blade punches through the enemy's torso, and he hits the floor leaking red from everywhere that matters. Match over. Except it is not over. Because this psychopath stands back up with horns on his head and demonic markings crawling across his body and declares every living person in this arena will become his sacrifice. Red energy explodes outward and civilians start getting ripped from their seats into the sky. This is no longer a match. The power bleeds out beyond the arena. Across the entire Kangming nation, red light erupts from temples and rooftops. He rises above the landscape with red veins spreading across the earth below him like a plague made of light, draining everything he touches. But Hutu appears above the civilians and throws down a golden barrier with divine seals. She looks at this demon with the calmest expression on her face and tells him gods were born from people. You do not get to stand above them. And honestly, that line alone made this the hardest moment in the entire series so far. This freak is screaming that mortals exist to be sacrificed to the gods, but Hutu is standing in the middle of that crimson nightmare wrapped in golden light like a divine firewall. And the whole arena goes white, but the demon is still moving. He lands back in the ring and starts monologuing about his grand mission, grabs Ningxuan by the collar and tells everyone in this building to come die with him. The crowd is losing it because this maniac is literally trying to turn this whole arena into a mass grave. But look at this fool's face. He is grinning. You think I came unprepared? Because the system just flashed 3 auxiliary card draws, and this absolute menace is pulling S-rank support cards mid-crisis like he's shopping during a house fire. 2 golden cards materialize. Absolute defense and united as one. Ningxuan grits his teeth and slams both cards out at the same time. Golden pillars rip through the ceiling of the arena like the sky itself just got an eviction notice. The scoreboard confirms it. Disha activates absolute defense and united as one. And there he is, standing in the center of a golden pillar that's incinerating every red tendril that tries to touch him while the entire stadium watches. The demon hits the floor, bleeding, cracked, barely holding together, and all he can manage is how. Ningxuan turns his head just slightly and goes, "Now it's your turn." Varsity jacket, sneakers, standing in a divine arena like he just finished a pickup game and not a war against a demon. Hutu descends one more time and the sheer radiance of this goddess makes the whole sky bend around her. And Ningxuan says something that goes harder than any attack he's thrown. The will of the people is the true divine mandate. Streams of golden light pour in from the entire arena like every single person's faith just became ammunition. The demon looks up at Hutu floating above him, and for the first time you can see genuine fear in those red eyes. Because this goddess is not even sweating. She's looking at him like an exterminator looks at a roach. And this demon, who 2 minutes ago was threatening to sacrifice an entire stadium, is begging, "Please, spare me just this once." Hutu spreads her arms and a silhouette of divine power expands behind her. Golden cracks spiderweb across the demon's body like someone just ran the invoice on every sin he committed. And Hutu smiles and tells him to be more careful in his next life. That is the coldest thing a goddess has ever said. A golden arc tears across the sky over the ocean. Dasha wins, and the old man in the crowd is crying. Full tears, hands trembling, whispering, "We did it." His teammates sprint across the arena to reach him, group hug in the middle of a divine battleground, and honestly I felt that in my chest. Now here's where the politics start moving. The Jade Nation agrees to form an alliance, and a second nation signs on too because apparently revenge is a fantastic motivator. But watch this guy. He's got intel that the TNY cult promised to help these nations summon supreme gods. The old leader runs the briefing. Asia still has Jinghan, Asan, and Fezui standing, and all three have bones to pick with Dasha. Globally, there are 6 major nations left on the board, and thanks to that King Ming beatdown, the whole world now knows what Dasha's gods can do. Ningxuan already knows. Kang Ming had the TNY cult pulling strings behind the scenes, and they need to stay on guard. The old man looks at him and says, Dasha's future is riding on you. And that is exactly when the door flies open. His teammate rushes in with the worst possible news. Singhan just cut diplomatic ties and they want smoke. Ningxuan processes that for about half a second and goes, worst case scenario is already here. But here is the silver lining. After beating Kang Ming, his god intimacy shot up to 20% and he's got fresh card draws banked. This kid sits there and says protecting Dasha is his generation's mission like he's 20 years old and already writing his own history textbook entry. He tells the leader, we do not start fights, but we absolutely finish them. His 2 teammates salute and they are ready to roll. The arena lights up again. Singhan has officially thrown the gauntlet at Dasha. Singhan versus Deha. Round 1 of what's about to become a very long day. An official in the stands is already sweating because he knows Fezui and Asan are probably next in line. And down in the arena, Singhan's cardmaster Mengtian is on the phone panicking because his main god still has not shown up. He straightens up and tells whoever is on the other end to follow his orders exactly. Both fighters take their positions. Mengtian with his sword, Ningxuan with his sneakers, and then Mengtian opens his mouth and says, X. The crowd cannot process what they just heard. The girl is already thinking this stinks of a conspiracy and the TNY cult is behind it. Ningxuan calls it on the spot. The TNY cult put you up to this. Mengtian flinches. Sweat is actually visible on this man's face. And Ningxuan goes full interrogation mode. Talk. Everything you know, or I will keep challenging your nation until there is nothing left. You have 10 seconds. Look at the gear this man is carrying. Sword, medallions, the whole samurai starter kit. He reaches for something at his side, pulls out his phone right there in the arena, gets on the call and starts whispering about the TNY cult having a solution. Then he turns and tells Ningxuan not to think he's untouchable. The look on this man's face just shifted from scared to something much more dangerous. He grins and says someone out there can handle you. And honestly, that smile just gave me a bad feeling I cannot shake. Ningxuan folds his arms and does not blink. 3 nations want a piece of Dasha because all 3 just teamed up. Asan, Fezui, and Xinghan are challenging Dasha together. The arena shifts to a cracked wasteland battlefield and these fools sacrifice their own national fortune to pull this off. Ningxuan's eyes go wide. They burn their own country's fate just to power up for this one fight. And the 2 cardmasters who step forward look like they came straight out of different mythologies. One is giving Hindu warrior energy and the other is radiating Jade Court advisor vibes. The warrior one, Due, opens with today I erase the shame. Bold words from someone who just torched his nation's luck to be here. And Li Ping, the pretty boy in the green hat, calmly says Asia cannot contain Daxia anymore like he is reading a weather report about the apocalypse. All 3 enemy cardmasters raise their god cards at the same time, and every single one is fire type. The sky tears open with purple lightning and Sanskrit inscriptions burn through the clouds. A massive purple lotus blooms in the storm and lightning crashes straight through its center. Shiva, the actual destroyer. 6 arms, fire in his palms, sitting on a lotus throne like he personally invented the concept of violence. The entire sky folds into a purple vortex. Then a second god materializes. The grassland goddess, skull-crowned, bone bow, looking like she hunts souls as a hobby. She draws that bowstring back and the arrow is already aimed before she even fully solidifies. And a third one. A sacrificial altar of skulls and blood in a swirling abyss. Whatever crawled out of that thing is not here to negotiate. An official in the crowd is on his feet pointing. 3 supreme gods against 1 card master. This is an execution, not a match. Benxian screams that today is Ningxuan's funeral and genuinely believes every word of it. But Dasha's squad walks forward together. All 3 of them, side by side. Due roars at them, but the big man on Ningxuan's team steps up and asks if anyone checked with him first. And the girl shouts it so the whole arena can hear. Dasha never fights alone. Never. She says it again for the people in the back. Mengtian just stares them down, thinking you have no idea what the TNY cult prepared for you. He raises one finger to the sky and says watch closely. A golden pillar erupts from the arena, but something is wrong with it. Ningxuan reaches for his cards and nothing happens. He cannot summon anything. The arena is blocking him. And all 3 enemy card masters charge at the same time because they planned this from the start. But the girl is already 1 step ahead with a glowing card in her hands. And the big man pulls one out too. Both of them activate golden dragon cards simultaneously. 2 divine silhouettes erupt from the cards and the golden light is so intense the whole arena goes blind for a second. Shiva charges a purple orb between his hands and he is not waiting for introductions. The grassland goddess pulls her bowstring to full draw. And a third god materializes on their side. A skull-crowned death deity leaking purple flame from every joint. 3 gods versus Daisha's team and this fight is about to redefine the word unfair. Dasha's summoned gods are already throwing hands. The bull demon swings that spiked mace while the swordsman holds the line, and somehow this is a fair fight against 3 supreme deities. Meanwhile, this fool is trapped inside a golden barrier, pressing his palms against it like a kid locked out of his own house while it burns down. The big man screams for everyone to hold on and you can hear his voice cracking from the strain. And the girl clenches her jaw so hard it might break because losing is not an option she's willing to process right now. But here's the problem. The 3 enemy card masters are done spectating and they're closing in on Daisha's fighters directly. The big man throws himself over the girl after she gets knocked flat and takes the hit meant for her. He stares them down and tells them if they want somebody, come get him instead. Dewey doesn't even flinch, just stands there telling them not to rush because they're all gonna die at the same pace anyway, then closes the distance with a fist that fills the entire frame. All three enemies march forward in sync, and nobody in this arena is drawing a breath. The girl is pinned on the ground and someone's hands are already on her throat. Mengtian is screaming for them to die with a grin so wide it should be classified as a mental health concern. He grabs her by both arms and she's fighting back with everything she has left, which is not a lot. Half the crowd has their hands over their mouths and the other half looks like they're about to be sick. This girl in the stands grips the railing so hard her knuckles go white because she's watching her nation die in real time. But then, a blade slides forward from the shadows and the man holding it hasn't wasted a single word. That sword launches into the sky above the arena like a divine bookmark telling everyone to pause, and slams back down between the fighters, splitting the whole skirmish in half. The girl staggers but she's alive. The bull demon and Tanlang regroup side by side. Beat up, bleeding, but still standing, which is more than the enemy planned for. Tanlang just stands there looking like this three-nation assassination attempt is a minor scheduling conflict. The bull demon growls that he wishes the monkey was here, and honestly same because Wukong would be tap dancing on Shiva's forehead by now. Dewey's done waiting. He narrows those red eyes and says he's sending them to the grave right now. All three enemy supreme gods assemble in a line. Shiva, the Skull Reaper, and the Grassland Goddess. That is a raid boss lineup and Dasha is running it on hard mode. Light detonates across the arena as the gods collide at full output and everything goes white. And the girl is crying. Not from fear. From the fact that she already knows who lost that exchange. The sky above the arena turns black like even heaven doesn't want to watch what happens next. The big man is flat on the ground with nothing left and MC is still caged inside that barrier watching his whole team get erased. The people in the stands already look like they're attending a funeral. One guy asks the question everyone's thinking. Are we really about to lose again? And Mengtian strolls across the arena floor like he already hung the trophy. Who can save Da Sha now, he asks, and he means it as a victory speech. But MC is staring straight at him from behind that barrier, and this moron calls him an idiot right to his face, which visibly confuses Mengtian because why is the trapped guy still talking? MC starts running his mouth. He calls out every single dirty play. Burning your own national fortune, shaking your own people's foundation just for a chance to kill us. A kid in the stands covers her mouth because she's just realized the enemy nations sacrificed their own citizens' fate to fund this attack. Blue hoodie guy rises to his feet talking about how Dasha would never pull something that vile and the entire section starts nodding. Mengtian sneers at Ningxuan. You're finished, he says, like the conversation is already over. But MC is already pressing against the barrier with both arms, and he's not talking to Mengtian anymore. He's talking to every single person in those stands. Do you have faith in Dasha? And the crowd doesn't know it yet, but that question is a weapon. The girl teammate pulls the big man to his knees. Both of them are wrecked, but neither one is quitting. A system notification flashes. Divine affinity 25%. The people's belief just converted into a stat and it's already feeding him power. MC rips through the barrier screaming that it's their turn to fight back and the golden energy around him agrees violently. Lightning threads between every finger like the faith of an entire nation just became ammunition he can physically hold. The crowd loses it. Tears, screaming, fists in the air. This is the moment that broke them and welded them back together. Mengtian's face just crashed because this was not in the script the Tianwai cult wrote for him. MC closes his eyes and a goddess materializes behind him like his prayer just got answered on express shipping. Her hand reaches forward and there's a weight behind that gesture that makes every enemy god in the arena feel suddenly mortal. Golden chains explode out and latch onto Mengtian like a divine subpoena served at maximum velocity. He's wrapped head to toe and still snarling about how 3 supreme gods won't bow to this. Keep that same energy in about 30 seconds, buddy. MC just watches. No smirk, no trash talk, just quiet confidence from a kid in a varsity jacket who wasn't even supposed to be the main fighter. And these two absolute cowards, Dewey and Li Ping, immediately throw Mengtian under the bus, claiming it was all his plan and they had nothing to do with it. But the girl looks down at 2 darkened god cards in her hands. The Bull Demon and Tanlang both died in that clash, and their cards went black. MC reaches over and covers the cards with his hand. The faith energy should be enough to bring them back. He holds one of the cards and golden light starts bleeding through the cracks like a resurrection loading screen. He raises both cards overhead and they're burning so bright they might as well be 2 small stars in his grip. And she smiles. Because both gods are coming back online. MC turns around to face the 3 enemy supreme gods standing in a row and says it's time for payback. This kid against Shiva, the grassland goddess and a literal death deity. Something golden rockets over the arena railing and into the field. The arena scoreboard lights up. Deja deploys support cards. Twin gods descend. The notification alone sends shockwaves through the crowd. 2 goddess cards materialize side by side. This isn't a last resort. This is a gotcha pull at Mythic Pity and he hit it twice. Both cards launch toward the sky. The first goddess materializes in a cascade of green light and floating clouds like nature itself decided it had business here today. And the second one steps through a swirling vortex of water so cold the arena drops 10 degrees just from her showing up. MC stands between 2 S-rank divine beings in a varsity jacket and black pants. That might be the hardest image composition in this entire series. His teammates are clutching each other on the sideline trying to process that this fool just summoned 2 S-rank gods at the same time like it was nothing. The enemy death god spreads its tendrils and cackles about swallowing Daxia whole. Promises its masters will receive even more power. Big talk from a skeleton in a bathrobe. Shiva roars his war cry with every arm burning, and he is going all in. The death deity goes full Lovecraft. Tentacles, serpent heads, purple hellfire vines with teeth. This thing looked nasty before, but now it's an extinction event. And the grassland goddess tears the earth apart with thorns and bone spikes like the ground itself owed her money. Both Dasha goddesses receive twin bolts of lightning from the heavens and absorb it without moving a single inch. MC stands between them as ancient inscriptions orbit their combined barrier. The power radiating from these three makes the arena floor vibrate. A tidal wave of purple destruction crashes into their barrier, and the impact shakes the whole stadium. And Shiva looks up with genuine disbelief on his face because they tanked the full combined attack of three supreme gods and the barrier didn't even crack. MC grins, then asks if these three clowns even know who they're dealing with. Allow him to educate them. The Taishan goddess, Bixia Yuanjun, standing before waterfalls that move at her command, and Dumu Yuanjun, the mother of the Big Dipper. The literal constellation blazes behind her like a crown she earned by existing. Together they control earth and sky, mountains and stars, yin and yang. That yin-yang symbol between them isn't decorative. MC points directly at the enemy gods. These two are forged by heaven and earth itself. You really think your imported mythology stands a chance? The crowd goes absolutely feral. They're not afraid anymore. Every single one of them is riding this momentum. Shiva snarls that victory still belongs to them, but the tremor in his voice tells a very different story. MC pulls up his system interface. God card draws 0. Support card draws 1 remaining. Affinity holding at 25%. He's got one more play left. He locks onto that last draw like a man about to put his entire savings on one spin. His eyes flash gold and the card in his hand starts radiating S-rank divine energy. This isn't a support card anymore. The enemy death god's skull fills the frame, and for the first time it's not grinning. MC closes his eyes and the death god is standing right behind him, not attacking, standing with him. He just poached their god like a free agent pickup mid-season. Rainbow light pools in his palm like every divine force on this field just signed the same contract. The death god materializes in full on the arena floor gripping its skull staff, and it is no longer answering to its original owners. The crowd is in shock because a mortal just bent a god to his will, and that's not supposed to be a thing that happens. MC stands flanked by both goddesses, smiling, and asks if they're scared yet. Narrator's note, they should be. Shiva, the literal destroyer, screams that this is impossible. And honestly, watching a supreme god have a mental breakdown might be the most satisfying thing this series has produced. MC walks forward, and the energy flowing off his body looks like wings made of pure divine authority. And there it is. Shiva is begging Daisha's gods to spare him. The god who sat on a lotus throne and invented the concept of violence. MC tells them they're not going anywhere. No surrender, no escape, no negotiations. Two enemy god cards shatter in midair like cheap glass, and their fragments don't even make it to the floor. MC stands alone in the silence that follows, looking like the calmest weapon of mass destruction this arena has ever hosted. The scoreboard lights up one final time. Daisha wins. All three nations' fortune now belongs to them. 3 countries tried to jump one team and left the arena with nothing but regret and a lighter wallet. 3 nations' worth of fortune crashes into Daisha like a golden meteor shower, and the ground itself can barely handle the deposit. The teammates are standing in the arena grinning like they just won the lottery because functionally they did. And Ningsuan, this absolute menace in sneakers, actually bows to the 2 goddesses with his hands together like a polite schoolboy, thanking his tutors after finals. Genuinely grateful. No ego, no victory lap, just pure respect from a kid who knows he couldn't have done it alone. The goddesses accept it gracefully because of course they do. They're literal deities who just dismantled 3 countries' finest without breaking a sweat. But then Dumu's expression hardens and she drops a mission on him like a parting gift. Eradicate the Tianwei cult. No negotiations. Ningsuan processes that for half a second and connects the dots. Daisha's civilization being severed in the first place was because of the Tianwei cult. Both goddesses stand in quiet agreement, neither one flinching, because they've been carrying this grudge for centuries. And this fool swears to protect Daisha with the conviction of someone who actually means it, which in this genre is either a death flag or a coronation. His fist tightens at his side. No speech, no dramatic oath, just a silent promise from a clenched hand. Now here's where things get spicy because halfway across the world, the #1 god card master of Jiting Nation is lounging in his office like a man who has never been told no in his entire life. He acknowledges Daisha is the strongest nation on paper. Biggest territory, biggest population, and that only makes him more interested. He leans over to his handler and tells her to book a private jet to Daisha immediately because this clown wants a face-to-face with Ningsuan. Ningsuan's image is plastered across the screen in that boardroom like a scouting report before draft night. And the woman in black just nods, already making arrangements because when your boss is this unhinged you learn to move fast. Meanwhile back in Daisha, incense sticks slide into a bronze burner at a temple and the shift in energy is immediate. People are flocking to the temples, praying to the gods, and the faith is flowing upward into the divine statues, like a spiritual crowdfunding campaign. Because here's the thing about gods in this world, they run on belief. More worshippers means more power, and right now Daisha's faith meter is spiking through the roof. Ningsuan walks through the temple crowd, watching everyone pray, and starts doing the math on what this means for the civilization's severance. He pulls up his system, and there it is. God card draws 1. Support card draws 1. Divine affinity now sitting at 27%. That affinity ticked up and this idiot notices it instantly because he watches those numbers like a day trader watching their portfolio. He's checking his phone in the middle of a crowd of devout worshippers like the one kid who texts during church. Phone call. Someone tells him an S-rank god card master named Liang just landed and the elder wants him at the airport. Ningsuan's first thought, what does she want? already suspicious before the plane even parks, and honestly that's growth. Because a private jet from Seating is pulling up to Dasha's tarmac like an uninvited guest who brought their own champagne, the whole Dasha squad rolls up to the airport. Ningxuan, the old man Long Lao, and the teammates all waiting on the runway. Long Lao breaks down the geopolitical situation. The great nations are beefing everywhere. Some golden knight and a pope figure are at each other's throats. Meng Tian adds that Liang just signed a friendship treaty with the Viking nation, which means Jiting is building alliances while everyone else is distracted. Long Lao's face says everything. Whatever Liang wants, it won't be simple. Ningxuan turns toward the plane with a look that says, "Bring it." And honestly, this kid's confidence after bodying 3 nations is at an all-time high. Out steps Lianger in a suit made entirely of flexes and gemstones, with his handler right behind him looking like the CFO of an evil corporation. Dasha's squad lines up on the tarmac 4 deep, and keep your eye on this lineup because this is the whole negotiating party right here. Lianger walks right up to Ningxuan with a grin and goes, "We finally meet," like he's been waiting for this moment his whole career. The woman cuts straight to business. Xiting wants a partnership, and by partnership she means a joint military campaign to carve up other nations. Ningxuan plays it smooth at first, saying Dasha is open to friendly relations with Xiting. But Lianger's eyes narrow because friendly relations was not the offer. He's pitching world domination, and Ningxuan responded with a handshake. He lays out the full pitch right there on the runway. Team up, obliterate the Viking nation, swallow Rome, and split the leftovers between them. Mengtian and the girl both look like they just heard someone propose arson at a business meeting, because that is essentially what just happened. Lianger even throws shade at the competition. The Viking nation doesn't even have a single A-rank card master, and Rome's girl is too weak to spar with. He extends his hand to Ningxuan like a CEO closing a hostile takeover. First they eat Viking, then Rome, then the entire globe falls in line. Ningxuan smiles, and turns him down flat. Just a soft sorry and a no, which is the most disrespectful rejection in diplomatic history. Lianger's face freezes for half a second because nobody has ever declined a world conquest invitation this casually. He pushes harder. Sweep the whole globe together, split everything 50-50. How is that not tempting? Ningxuan hits back with a real question. What if you're working with a Tianwai cult? And he says it right to Lianger's face too. Zero hesitation, like accusing a foreign dignitary of terrorism on an airport runway is just Tuesday for him. Lianger laughs it off and calls the Tianwai cult garbage, saying if they show up he'll delete them one by one. But the dismissal is a little too casual, the confidence a little too clean, and something about this whole interaction is starting to smell off. And Lianger's smile shifts to something colder and he mutters that it's time for plan B, which is never something you want to hear from a guy who just got rejected. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a god card, and this maniac is really about to start something on Daxia soil. The girl shouts a warning because she sees what's happening before anyone else reacts. She screams that this is Dasha territory, as in you cannot be serious right now. But Lianger just shrugs and says if they can't be friends, then the only option left is a one-on-one arena duel, and the activation rips through the tarmac like a flashbang. Both of them get swallowed by light and yanked into a sealed combat dimension before anyone can intervene. The arena materializes around them. Closed ceilings, sealed walls, no crowd, no escape. Just 2 card masters and whatever gods they can summon. Lianger is grinning like someone who rigged the exam before walking into the testing room, and Ningxuan is about to find out why. Because Ningxuan tries to summon his gods and nothing happens. This arena blocks divine summoning entirely. He checks the system just to be sure. God card draws 1. Support draws 1. Affinity 27%. The resources are all there, but the arena won't let him spend them. The realization hits him like cold water. He walked into a cage designed specifically to strip away his biggest advantage. Lianger is already powered up and wreathed in red energy, telling him not to bother trying. And Ningxuan is on the floor, already down. Because Lianger didn't wait for a dramatic speech, he just started swinging the second the system locked. This psychopath explains that the arena blocks god summoning completely. They're both inheritors of divine power, future gods in mortal shells, so this is a test of raw personal strength. Ningxuan picks himself up off the arena floor because getting knocked down and getting beaten are 2 extremely different things. They square up properly this time. 2 divine successors, no gods, no backup, just whatever power their own bodies can produce. Lianger launches in with a grin that says he's been waiting months for someone who can actually take a punch. The arena trembles under the exchange as both of them trade hits across the platform like 2 freight trains playing chicken. Ningxuan spits blood and grits his teeth because this fool hits like his fists are on a government payroll. But he wipes his mouth and sets his stance again because quitting has never been in this moron's vocabulary. Lianger is bleeding too, and somehow that makes him happier. He says Ningxuan is worthy, like getting punched in the face is his love language. Then this maniac drops the pretense entirely. A colossal fire god in golden armor erupts behind him, and the temperature in the arena doubles instantly. So much for no summoning being allowed. Outside the arena, Mengtian's face twists because he can feel what just happened inside, and there's nothing he can do about it. The girl and Long Lao are both standing at the stairs of the jet looking helpless, wondering if Ningxuan is even still alive in there. But inside, Ningxuan has an answer. He stands calm in the center of the arena, and a goddess of moonlight blooms behind him like the night sky opening its eyes. Is that who I think it is? That is Chang'e, the moon goddess herself, cradling a jade rabbit and backed by a full moon, and she looks like she was born to end someone's career. Lianger responds by flooding the arena with fire. His sun god erupts in a pillar of flame that turns the entire platform into a furnace. Fire and moonlight collide in the center of the arena, and the explosion rattles the entire sealed dimension. Lianger laughs and drops the mythological flex. When the sun rises, the moon must bow. He genuinely believes his fire outranks the moon. Ningxuan stares him down and you can see the gears turning behind those eyes because he's not panicking, he's calculating. Liang Er screams for him to surrender while his fire god towers in the background. Absolute peak villain confidence, and we all know what happens next. Because another goddess materializes behind Ningxuan, surrounded by a halo of stars, and the temperature in the arena drops 10 degrees. Ningxuan steps forward onto a glowing summoning circle and casually mentions he has more than one god backing him. A water tornado erupts from the circle and lifts Ningxuan above the arena floor while Liang Er can only stand there and watch. A serpent goddess rises from the water column, full divine regalia, jade ornaments, the works, and Liang Er is staring up at her like a man who just realized he miscounted. Her hands crackle with ice blue energy as she gathers power between her palms, and she unleashes a tidal wave of frost that tears across the arena floor like winter decided to speedrun its arrival. The wave slams into Liang Er's position and buries it under a wall of freezing water and divine pressure. A third divine figure materializes above the arena, translucent and ancient, arms folded in a meditative pose. Ningxuan isn't just matching Liang Er's god count, he's exceeding it. But Liang Er emerges from the frost grinning even harder, red energy flaring behind him, and tells Ningxuan to keep going. He closes his eyes and the fire god's presence doubles. This absolute lunatic is enjoying himself, which might be the scariest part of this entire fight. Ningxuan dodges a stream of fire and slides across the arena with his feet barely touching the ground. They clash again at close range, varsity jacket versus designer suit, sneakers versus dress shoes, and somehow this fight keeps getting more personal. They separate across the arena, both breathing hard, and Ningxuan is starting to realize raw power alone won't close this gap. So he yells that only a fool would trade punches head-on against someone with a sun god in their pocket. He raises his palm and shifts his stance because if brute force is off the table, then strategy is the only currency left. The system flashes in front of him. One god draw, one support draw, 27% affinity. He hits the support card button mid-fight, and that smirk on his face says whatever card he just pulled is about to ruin Liang Er's entire afternoon. The support card draw pops open right there in the middle of the arena, and this fool is browsing his options like he's picking a Netflix show. And one card slides forward from the rest, glowing red and pulsing like it has a personal grudge against someone. But Liang Er catches it immediately because support cards are only supposed to buff gods, not the card master themselves. Except Ningxuan is holding a giant strength card wrapped in fire, and apparently he didn't read the same rulebook as everyone else. And for the first time in this entire fight, Liang Er's face isn't smiling. That's how you know something broke. Because our boy just applied a god-tier buff directly to his own body and now he's standing in front of a wall of red flame like the tutorial boss just went Super Saiyan. He launches off the ground sneaker first, and that fist is radiating so much heat you can practically hear the air crying. Ningxuan drops into a stance with his fist still glowing, and he looks like a kid who just discovered the cheat code works in PvP. Liang Er's face says what his pride won't let his mouth admit, because this moron in a varsity jacket just closed the gap and delivered a punch that sends the #1 cardmaster of Shiting staggering backward. Blood on those perfect lips and genuine shock in those blue eyes. That might be the most satisfying frame in this entire series. Liang Er gets launched across the arena floor like a designer suit in a washing machine, and Ningxuan just watches him tumble. Outside, Mengtian and the girl are watching the sealed arena and they can feel it in the air. The arena dissipates and there they are. Ningxuan standing tall, Liang Er doubled over and leaking from places that designer suit was not built to handle. Mengtian can barely contain himself because his boy actually won. But the woman in black is already at Liang Er's side near the jet, propping him up like she's done this before. And then Liang Er stands back up glowing like a bloodied prince at a coronation because this absolute psychopath says it's not over yet. Look at that face, beaten, bleeding, and somehow more composed than he was at full health. This man does not process defeat the way normal people do. A pillar of blue light rips through the sky so bright it probably got reported as a UFO sighting. And both of them get pulled into the beam, rising off the tarmac side by side like they just got drafted into Heaven's Bracket tournament. Mengtian is screaming from the ground because Liang Er literally just lost and is now forcing a rematch through some kind of teleportation magic. That's not competitive spirit, that's a restraining order. And Liang Er just smirks and says he's simply going with the flow of the era, as if kidnapping your opponent into a second fight is a cultural trend. Now they're face to face in what looks like a completely different dimension, and Liang Er is already talking about fighting again on a proper stage. Meanwhile, the people watching have no idea what that card Ningxuan pulled actually does, and honestly neither do I at this point. Because Liang Er is standing in the middle of a packed arena with his arms spread wide like he's hosting a gala, and this is round 2, baby. But here's where things go completely off the rails because a third player just entered the chat. That bloodshot eye belongs to Andre from the Viking Nation, and he looks like he hasn't slept or smiled in months. This man is screaming about how someone just signed a treaty and already broke it. Even Ningxuan wasn't expecting a third party to crash this rematch. The arena they've been dropped into is massive, octagonal, packed to the rafters, and glowing with enough energy to power a small country. 3 contestants, 3 nations. Liang Er from Shiting, Ningxuan from Daxia, and Andre from the Vikings. This just went from a duel to a 3-way deathmatch. The rules flash on screen. It's called the Cage Labyrinth, and the card masters have to navigate a maze to find god cards hidden inside. So this isn't just a brawl anymore, it's a dungeon crawl. The crowd loses their minds because nobody signed up to watch a treasure hunt inside a death trap. And if you want to swap your gods, you have to earn it in there. Liang is already leaning against a stone wall inside the labyrinth, laughing like he booked this vacation himself. He tells Ningxuan not to die in there, which is the least reassuring pep talk of all time. Ningxuan is already in the maze with his hand on his chin because he knows this stage is testing more than just raw power. He needs to be careful. But then something shifts and his expression changes entirely. Because standing in front of him in this dark stone corridor is the last thing he expected to find in a competition maze. A hooded figure with red eyes and clawed hands, smiling like he's been waiting here this whole time. The TNY cult is inside the labyrinth and they're not here for the cards. This creep explains that the cage can actually cut off connection to the gods, and that's why they picked this spot. A maze that doubles as divine signal jammer. Brilliant and terrifying. Dark tendrils shoot from the wall and grab at Ningxuan before he can even react. And for the first time in a while, this kid looks genuinely scared. He's demanding to know what they did with Dasha's gods because he can feel the connection severed. The hooded freak just grins wider and tells him the gods aren't coming back. Ningxuan holds out both hands trying to summon anything and getting nothing. He drops. No gods answering, no system bailing him out, just a kid in a varsity jacket lying on the ground of a dungeon wondering if this is where the story ends. And the cultist turns his attention elsewhere because apparently Liang is next on the menu. Golden flames erupt behind this creature like it just powered up on Ningxuan's misery alone. Keep your eye on that red eye, because whatever this thing is, it's not just a foot soldier. This is something ancient. Ningxuan lies there with his eyes shut, and I genuinely thought we lost him for a second. But then golden sparks start crackling around him because even when the connection to Daisha's gods is severed, this idiot refuses to stay down. His eyes snap open and he says he won't accept it, and honestly, the conviction behind those words could restart a dead engine. A god card ignites in golden light. Dasha summons a B-rank deity and the maze fills with divine pressure. Golden boots touch down on the labyrinth floor, and a brand new god materializes in white and gold robes, wreathed in celestial energy like he just clocked into his shift. The god squares up directly across from the hooded figure, and the power difference is immediately obvious. The cultist mutters Ningxuan's name like he just miscalculated something critical. He's asking how Ningxuan is still alive, and the panic in those red eyes is genuine for the first time. And the god doesn't even dignify him with a proper answer. Just tells him to ask the king of hell when he gets there. That's the coldest one-liner this series has produced, and the cultist is already dissolving into the floor like spilled ink. Is this the most disrespectful kill we've seen so far? I think it might be. But another dark creature is lurking deeper in the labyrinth corridors, its red eyes glowing in the shadows, and it's congratulating Andre on supposedly killing Ningxuan, which means the Viking and the TNY cult were working together this entire time. Those red eyes are giving off the kind of energy that would make a parole officer nervous. But Andre suddenly looks furious, screaming through what looks like a barrier because something just went wrong with their plan. The dark entity shifts into a full shadow form and starts moving through the corridor like a final boss who just got bored of the cutscene. And then Ningxuan rounds a corner and runs directly into Liang, which in this maze is somehow the best possible outcome. He tells Liang immediately. The TNY cult is here, inside the labyrinth, and they need to deal with them together. And Liang, the man who was trying to murder him 20 minutes ago, agrees to team up without a second of hesitation because enemy of my enemy is my sparring partner. Which is when the Viking nation drops their trump card. An A-rank ice god called Vieles materializes in the maze, and this thing is built like a glacier that learned to walk. Both Liang and Ningxuan are staring up at this monster, and it fills the entire corridor from wall to wall. Liang turns to him and says he'll hold the ice god off while Ningxuan finds the cards. And somehow that's the most selfless thing a rival has ever done in this manhwa. Ningxuan just gives him this quiet smile that says more than any dialogue could. Andre is perched on the ice god's shoulder, screaming like a man who peaked in the Viking age and never got over it. He charges forward with all that berserker energy and zero impulse control. Ningxuan splits off through the maze looking exhausted, but knowing Liang just bought him a window. The ice god opens its mouth and unloads a frost beam down the corridor like Winter filing a noise complaint. But Liang answers with fire that punches a hole through the maze wall. He's standing in the smoke with that trademark grin telling Andre his opponent is right here, and if he wants to die that badly, Liang is happy to oblige. Andre and his A-rank ice god against Liang alone. On paper, this is a losing matchup, but the ice god in full form is genuinely terrifying, cape flowing, crown gleaming, built like Kratos' Nordic cousin. Meanwhile, Ningxuan is sprinting through the labyrinth alone because Liang gave him one job and he's not going to waste it. Stone corridors blur past him as he runs deeper and deeper into the maze. He stops at a wall and presses against it because he can feel something on the other side. A faint pulse of divine power. His fist tightens against the stone as the sensation gets stronger. This is it. He puts everything he has into that wall and cracks of light split the stone apart. The wall crumbles and behind it is a hidden chamber with 2 god cards floating in midair waiting for someone worthy enough to find them. Light floods the room and those cards are glowing like they've been locked in there for ages. Found them. The system interface materializes in front of him, and for once this fool is actually in the right place at the right time. One draw available. Cards located. Ready to pull. This is what the entire maze was building toward. His existing god card collection fans out beside him, and with one draw he could add something that changes the entire balance of this 3-way war. Back in the corridor, the ice god is losing patience, and Liang is running out of time to stall. Liang raises both hands and red lightning arcs between his palms because he's about to go all in. And he slams that energy forward into a barrier that cracks with power, holding the line just long enough for whatever Ningxuan pulls to save them both. Andre's ice god charges forward crackling with lethal energy while this berserker psycho screams at Liang to drop dead. But Liang isn't solo anymore because Ningxuan made it back with backup, and suddenly the ice god god is being sandwiched from both sides. The collision detonates the entire corridor, like someone stuffed a bomb into a stone hallway and pulled the pin. Ningxuan calls out through the rubble, screaming Liang Er's name because he cannot lose this man after everything they just went through. And when the dust settles, this maniac fans out his entire card collection like he's browsing a menu at the end of the world. One card in particular floats right up to his face, and he calls it by name. Jingwei. And this is the card. S-rank deity, winged goddess standing on the ocean, painted like a museum piece that could end wars. Ningxuan stands alone in a corridor pulsing with blue light, and for once in his life this fool is exactly where he needs to be. Meanwhile, Andre is perched on his ice god like a throne, grinning down at his enemies because this freak refuses to stay down. But Liang Er spits blood and says he finally gets it. He understands exactly why Ningxuan despises the Tianwei cult. Andre just sneers back and calls them insects, like squashing two national champions is barely worth the calories. Look at this red-haired lunatic still smiling through the carnage. Someone tell him this isn't a vacation. The ice god towers over Liang Er and dumps an entire blizzard at point-blank range. The wall behind them shatters open and both sides are running on fumes, but nobody is admitting it. But Liang Er still has that grin, the kind that says the real fight hasn't started yet, because Daisha just dropped an S-rank deity onto the field, and Jingwei descends from the heavens like she owns every molecule of sky she's floating in. Liang Er wipes his lip and tells Ningxuan to shut up and help him demolish this clown already. Ningxuan just nods because when a man in a shredded designer suit tells you to fight, you fight. This idiot is literally clasping his hands together, begging an S-rank deity to handle the heavy lifting, and honestly the audacity alone deserves respect. Then he volunteers to handle the leftovers himself, and the confidence on this face is bordering on delusional. Jingwei spreads her wings and takes flight, and I will not be taking questions about why this is the hardest divine entrance in the series. The crowd back home is collectively losing their sanity because nobody told them Dasha was hiding an S-rank this powerful. One girl in the audience is screaming, asking if this is really their nation's deity because apparently nobody got the memo. A tornado of divine energy spirals above the maze, and Ningxuan just stands beneath it like this is a light breeze. He's already calculating, hoping Jingwei pulls out that one technique everyone's been waiting for. The ice god Violais answers with a full-power roar that cracks the walls and sends frost in every direction. And the sky above the arena rips open with a cyclone so massive it looks like the atmosphere itself chose a side. Andre grins through the chaos and tells them they'll find out soon enough how many nations the cult has already swallowed whole. Then he throws hands with Liang Er directly, fist to fist, red energy colliding like two bank accounts going bankrupt at the same time. But even this maniac can read the scoreboard. He admits out loud that finishing them today is off the table. So he does the classic villain exit, looks over his shoulder, says Ningxuan's name, and promises they'll meet again. Then he bolts down the corridor because apparently the Tianwei cult manual has a chapter on running away. A cloud of black smoke explodes out of the maze into the open sky. Andre rockets out of the labyrinth like a missile that filed its own flight plan, except something slams him face first into the dirt so hard he tastes last week. And standing right above him with divine wings burning blue behind him is Ningxuan telling him you don't just leave when you feel like it. That look alone could peel paint off walls. Andre's on the ground recognizing Jingwei's power flowing through this kid, and for the first time today, the confidence cracks. Liang Er charges in from the flank with his fist glowing red because teamwork makes the beatdown work. Andre braces with everything he has, fire igniting at his boots in a last-ditch attempt to stand. But both boys are just standing there relaxed, making it very clear that nobody signed his permission slip to leave. Andre is cornered and seething because the man who thought he was clearing this maze just became its prisoner. He wraps himself in a vortex of dark smoke, screaming that they don't have what it takes to hold him. And Ningxuan just closes his eyes with the smedgiest little grin, because sure, maybe he personally can't stop him. But the ice god Violais is pinned flat to the floor with nowhere to crawl, and the balance sheet is not looking good for Team Viking. Jingwei sweeps through the sky after the fleeing smoke like a hawk chasing a rat through a field. She pauses mid-flight, sensing something in that dark energy that's both familiar and revolting. Keep your eye on that reaction. Ningxuan gives her the nod, handing the mission over to an S-rank like he's delegating homework. But Andre's smoke trail slithers through the crumbling corridors and vanishes into the maze. Both boys walk through the wreckage, and Liang Er says what they're both thinking. Jingwei will return to her card soon. Tracking that roach after he goes underground is going to be almost impossible now. But Ningxuan just smirks because for a deity who once swore to fill an entire ocean, one escaped berserker is barely a footnote. Jingwei descends back into the corridor, wings folding behind her like she just finished a casual afternoon flight. Streams of blue light fall from the sky like divine rain, and Ningxuan watches it settle around him. Liang Er is staring at this situation, trying to process the fact that the kid he called a nobody just commanded a god. Meanwhile, the crowd goes absolutely feral. Every person in those stands screaming themselves hoarse because Daisha just flexed on the entire planet. And Ningxuan, our boy, opens his mouth to the entire arena because apparently it's lore drop o'clock. He tells them Jingwei is the daughter of the Yellow Emperor himself, and she floats above them as living proof. He recounts how she drowned in the Eastern Sea and was reborn as a divine bird that swore revenge on the ocean itself. The broadcast screen captures the audience hanging on every syllable because this stopped being a tournament 5 minutes ago and became a national history lesson. One girl is already planning her temple pilgrimage, and honestly, when the marketing is this effective, you can't blame her. A beam of multicolored light drops into the dark maze as the battlefield quiets. Ningxuan reminds them that Jingwei vowed to carry stones until the entire Eastern Sea was filled, and no arena built by humans could contain that kind of spite. He watches smoke drift through the corridor ahead. Andre is gone, but the Tianwei cult's shadow isn't. That dark entity with the red eyes seeps back into frame like a stain that knows where you sleep. It taunts him, saying Daxia's gods are just scraps of willpower now, echoes of what they used to be and nothing more. And Ningxuan looks at Dead in those glowing red eyes and says he'll recover every single one of Daxia's gods himself. His fists tighten at his sides as he makes it crystal clear that the gods of Daxia are not their problem to meddle with. Then he fires a blast of blue energy directly at the shadow because talking time is over and shooting time has begun. Jingwei watches him with this warm, approving gaze, and for 1 second the entire war pauses. She bows to him, an S-rank deity bowing to a kid in a varsity jacket, thanking him for telling her story to the people of Daxia. And this dork actually gets bashful, saying it's just what a junior should do while standing 3 feet from a literal winged goddess who could flatten continents. But her tone shifts hard. She tells him the TNY cult comes from beyond Blue Star. She explains that Daxia's gods didn't disappear. They all left this world to fight those demons beyond the sky. Ningxuan absorbs that silently, his expression hardening because one task just became 10 and every single one sounds impossible. Jingwei's card ignites with spiraling energy as she begins returning to her sealed form, her time on the field running out. And just like that, our boy is standing alone in a wrecked corridor with a god card, a to-do list that could kill him, and 0 breaks. He turns to Liang who is hunched against the wall, absolutely cooked, and asks if he still wants to keep fighting. The #1 card master of Shiting is kneeling in rubble, looking like he just ran a triathlon through a war zone. He laughs it off and calls it a draw because honestly, neither of them could throw another punch if their lives depended on it. But Ningxuan isn't done because there's something bigger than their rivalry brewing, and Liang needs to hear it. He tells him the demons have already swallowed multiple nations on Blue Star, and nobody outside these walls realizes how bad it actually is. Liang starts connecting the dots, and the look on his face says he hates every conclusion he's reaching. Ningxuan says it straight. When the demons come for them, he wants Daxia and Shiting standing on the same side of the battlefield. And Liang the man who has never agreed to anything without a 4-round fight first, actually considers it. He turns and walks deeper into the maze, saying he'll think about it, which in rival language is 1 handshake short of a yes. Ningxuan watches him go with this knowing little grin because he already knows the answer. The scene cuts to a war room with a digital map covering the entire wall, and half the nations on it are flagged red. Ningxuan sits across from the elder and drops his theory. Out of every nation on Blue Star, only 3 still have S-rank card masters, and the rest have already been devoured by the demons. 3 nations gone. No infrastructure, no defenses, no gods. And this kid is laying it out with the calm of someone who's already done the math. The elder raises 1 finger and says the obvious out loud. They need to form an alliance with Shiting and Guma immediately. Because Daxia on its own does not have the firepower to survive what's coming, and pretending otherwise is a death sentence. The elder nods and agrees. When the kid who just commanded an S-rank deity tells you the apocalypse has a timeline, you listen, and then we see her, standing alone in a forest, an S-rank card master from another nation who looks like she's been waiting for this war to knock on her door. So remember that S-rank card master standing alone in the forest? She brought backup, and her backup looks like he bench presses boulders to warm up for his actual workout. But the girl next to him is laying out the brutal math. If they pick a fight with the wrong nation, unless they can lock down an alliance with Daxia, and the desperation on her face says this isn't a negotiation, it's a lifeline. 1 day later, and already the plan is moving because Ningxuan is back at the conference table with the elder, confirming that Gu Qingqiao has been sent to Guma Nation to seal the deal. But the elder shifts gears and asks the question nobody wants to ask. What about Liang Because apparently nobody fully trusts a rival even after a truce. Ningxuan just leans back like a man who has already seen the end of the chessboard and says Liang knows how to read the room when it actually matters. Then the news drops. The Papal Nation just challenged a Mo Nation to a national Fate Arena match, and Ningxuan's expression flips like a switch. 2 nations without a single S-rank cardmaster between them throwing hands on a global stage, and this fool is already running the numbers before anyone else even processes it. The elder's first instinct is to ask if Daya should step in, because old habits die hard. Ningxuan shuts it down immediately. No intervention. This is actually the perfect opportunity to check whether either nation has been corrupted by the outer demons. Then he pulls out his phone mid-strategy session because apparently world-ending intelligence briefings get interrupted by group chats. It's Liang calling in his most absurdly ornate suit, casually informing him that the Papal Nation and Damo are going to war like he's reading a brunch menu. And Ningxuan's response? Not interested. 2 words, delivered with the emotional investment of someone declining a free sample at the grocery store. Liang on the other end genuinely pauses because this man has never heard the word no delivered with that little hesitation. Ningxuan stands up from the conference table because he's heading to the arena himself, not to fight, to watch. But before he goes, he tells the elder to have Wentian keep watch over Viking Nation while he's away, because the last thing they need is a backstab while the front door is open. The elder assures him Viking Nation just got humiliated, so they probably won't try anything. Probably. That word is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. And the scoreboard lights up like a boxing pay-per-view. Papal Nation versus Damo Nation. Let's see what these two have been hiding. The arena is absolutely unhinged. Light sticks out, the whole crowd screaming like this is a concert that ends with someone getting spiritually erased. Both card masters throw down their gods simultaneously, and look at these cards. One side's rocking a literal angel with a holy blade, and the other pulled out an Egyptian pharaoh deity with a trident. Full art reveals side by side, and both of these cards are gorgeous. Whoever designed these deserves a bonus and a vacation. Then the gods actually step off the cards and materialize in the arena, and the vibe shifts from entertainment to, oh, this is actually terrifying. Ningxuan stands in the crowd watching two divine beings prep to annihilate each other while regular humans cheer like they're at a football match, but he's not here for the show. He's scanning both gods for any trace of demonic corruption because this trip was never about entertainment. And the verdict? Both gods look clean. No corruption, no demon influence. These nations haven't been infiltrated. The Egyptian god goes full form, and this design alone is carrying the entire match. Golden wings, ornate staff, radiating raw authority across the stadium. Then the two gods collide. Holy Blade meets Divine Trident, and the shockwave ripples through every seat in the house. The Damo fighter fans out a hand of support cards because he knows brute strength alone won't settle this one. And just like that, the Egyptian god drinks a 30% combat buff. Stats climbing mid-battle like someone just fed him a power potion between rounds. But the Papal Nation's knight is not about to get outbuffed at his own game. He steps forward screaming that his nation has support cards too. This man is personally offended that someone tried to outcard him in a card fight, and the rage is genuinely hilarious. The Papal side drops their own support card, and the Angel lifts off with a 100% speed buff. The Angel went from Divine to Blur. That's not a stat boost, that's a cheat code. Ningxuan is already 3 steps ahead though. These two nations aren't afraid of getting picked off afterward. Either they're stupid or they know something nobody else does. Liang materializes next to him in the crowd grinning like this is a vacation, and asks if Ningxuan really isn't going to jump in. Ningxuan gives him the side eye and asks if he actually thinks these two nations are idiots. And Liang just stretches behind his head, perfectly relaxed, saying neither nation even has an S-rank card master. Ningxuan tells him to go ahead and fight if he wants. He's sitting this one out. Back on the floor, the Egyptian god is done playing around. The pressure pouring off him just tripled, and the entire arena feels it. The Angel answers in kind, wings fully spread, sword drawn, looking like every stained glass window came to life at once and chose violence. The Damo fighter confirms the plan with a battle cry. Whatever these two coordinated, they're committed. And the collision is apocalyptic. Holy light meets golden thunder, and the blast is so bright half the audience throws up their hands. The Papal fighter's smirk says everything. This entire match was never about winning. It was about luring other nations into the arena. Ningxuan and Liang stand side by side watching, and the contrast is comedy gold. One looks like he's doing homework, the other looks like he's front row at a music festival. Final result? A draw. Both nations walk away without a winner. Now here's where it gets suspicious. Liang is pumped about a new fight, but Ningxuan's face says he already figured out why neither side tried to actually win. Even the crowd is stunned. All that spectacle for a tie? Then a new matchup hits the board immediately. Shiting Nation versus Damo Nation, with the Papal Nation issuing the challenge. That's a 2-on-1 ambush wearing a tournament bracket as a disguise. And here comes Ziting's team walking onto the arena floor. Liang and his partner moving like they own every tile beneath their feet. The audience clocks it instantly. Shiting showed up to feast after a draw, which means the draw was always the appetizer. Ningxuan hangs back in the stands watching all 4 fighters from the perfect angle. This is exactly where he wants to be, seeing what they've been hiding. The Damo fighter grits his teeth because he wanted Ningxuan on that stage, not this substitute. But he'll settle for whoever's in front of him. And the Papal Knight folds his arms with the posture of a man who already wrote the ending to this fight before it started. Now these two former opponents are standing shoulder to shoulder against Yiting. Whatever that draw bought them, it was a partnership. Then dark tendrils of shadow start crawling across the arena floor like something beneath it is waking up. The Egyptian god has gone full nightmare mode. Black armor, shadowy tentacles whipping in every direction, and glowing eyes that make the entire stadium drop a few degrees. The Papal fighter tells Liang flat out he cannot beat both of them. Not a threat, not trash talk. Just the math. And then the Damo fighter points directly at Liang partner and calls her dead weight to his face in front of the entire stadium. Ningxuan shouts from the stands because he just connected every dot they drew on purpose. The whole first match was staged to set this trap. But Liang snaps back and tells him to stay out of it. The tone isn't polite. This fight is personal now. He turns to face the Damo fighter and says the technique he's about to use was originally saved for Ningxuan. So congratulations, they get the premiere. The intensity on this man just jumped 3 whole threat levels. Whatever ace he's been sitting on all tournament long, it's about to see daylight. He raises a card that's been burning a hole in his deck, and his partner readies beside him. And out of the summoning light steps Poseidon, the actual god of the sea. Golden armor, trident in hand, water already bending to his presence across the entire arena. Keep your eye on Shiting's card master count, that detail matters. Both opposing fighters stare at the sea god, and you can pinpoint the exact frame where their confidence evaporates. The Papal Knight recovers first. He didn't expect this, but he's not running either. He tells the Damo fighter to shut up and start swinging, and the Damo guy fires back with identical energy. Less strategy, more fists. These two just decided to speedrun this fight. Liang glances at his partner and says one thing. Protect yourself, because whatever comes next is not going to be clean. Both fighters charge at Liang simultaneously with absolutely zero hesitation. 2 nations, 1 target. They grab him from both sides like they're physically trying to stop whatever he's channeling, and honestly this looks less like a fight and more like 2 guys trying to hold down a bomb, because a fire god has just entered the chat. Flame armor, burning spear, and an expression that says everything this weapon touches. The dark god on the opposing side answers with a wave of shadow energy and a shield that could probably tank a meteor. And Poseidon just stands there with his trident like he's watching toddlers argue over a sandbox he's about to flood. Then he brings the ocean. A tsunami with wall of water erupts behind him in a fan that swallows half the arena, and that might be the most disrespectful opening move in this entire manhwa. Ningxuan watches with the thinnest trace of approval on his face because Liang is actually holding the line against a coordinated two-nation blitz, and his phone buzzes. Mid-battle. It's Go Qingqiao. Because nothing in this kid's life ever happens one emergency at a time. He picks up and whatever she says flips his expression on the spot. He agrees to leave for Guma Nation immediately. No debate, no delay. He tracks down Si Wenyan back at the temple, who is calmly reading an ancient text because some people apparently don't panic during the end of the world. Si Wenyan looks up from his book like a student who just got called on midnap and asks what's happening. Ningxuan drops it casually. He needs to go to Guma Nation right now. The delivery of world-altering news from this kid never stops being absurdly nonchalant. He lays it out face to face and the weight finally lands. Dasha is about to be in someone else's hands. This teenager is literally handing an entire nation's survival to his teammate and saying Dasha is yours now like he's tossing someone the remote control, and Zai Wentian just grins. Zero fear, zero hesitation. Just a smile that says bring it. Because this man has been grinding behind every scene we've watched. He holds up a god card and a copy of the Dasha God Encyclopedia. He's been studying every deity in Dasha's entire registry, and he's already bonded with his own god card. This fool powered up without telling a single person. Respect. Ningxuan looks at that fire god card and smiles because Dasha's bench is deeper than anyone on Blue Star realizes right now. More S-rank card masters are on the way. He hands off the last details and tells Zi Wentian to call immediately if anything goes sideways, but the look between them says more than the words do. Si Wenyan's face locks in. The dragon pillars and deity statues behind him feel less like decoration and more like a promise. Ningxuan turns and walks away through the temple corridors without a single glance back. Looking back means doubt, and this kid doesn't carry any. A stat screen pops up and we finally see where our boy stands. 2 god card draws, 2 support card draws, 40% god affinity. Not maxed yet, but getting dangerously close to the ceiling. And he's smiling. Actually smiling. Because at these numbers, he can rival S-rank deities himself, and that sentence would have sounded insane 4 episodes ago. But even mid-power trip, he's still tracking Liang fight, because this man's brain runs parallel missions like a server. Then Jingwei's wings rip out from his back, blazing blue full span, and honestly the hardest power-up visual this series has given us so far. And he launches into the sky, wings cutting through clouds, heading toward Guma Nation like a guided missile wearing a varsity jacket. He touches down in a forest clearing surrounded by ancient vine-covered ruins and a glowing portal. This place has been waiting for someone to show up for a very long time, and Gu Qingqiao is already there to meet him. She says Guma is ready to ally with Dasha, but there's one nation they're terrified of, and the look on her face says the real negotiation hasn't even started. Qingqiao wastes no time and lays out the terms. Guma has one condition for this alliance. If any nation rolls up on Guma with military force, Dasha has to step in and fight alongside them. That's the price of this handshake. And this fool agrees on the spot, just casually speaks for an entire nation like he's approving a group project. Qingqiao is beaming because she just locked down the most valuable military ally on Blue Star, and it took her about 90 seconds. Even the ape god looks satisfied because with Dasha backing them, nobody's touching Guma without getting their teeth rearranged. But the mood shifts when Qingqiao mentions the consequences of failure. Guma simply cannot afford to lose this bet. Ningxuan just listens with that quiet confidence he wears like a second skin. Then she pulls out a glowing contract card and holds it out like she had this thing preloaded in her inventory the entire time. Both of them reach toward the floating contract, and the glow between their hands says this is binding on a level deeper than paperwork. Contract cards materialize for both sides simultaneously. Dasha and Guma are officially locked in. Qingqiao smiles and drops the fine print. Whoever breaks this pact takes a direct hit to their national fortune. Ningxuan just grins and tells her Dasha always honors its word, which is a bold statement from a teenager running foreign policy. But then his companion suddenly looks shaken, and this shift in energy hits different after a peaceful negotiation. Ningxuan turns around because whatever spooked her just spooked him too. He asks what happened, and the look on his face already says he knows it's nothing good. She drops the bomb. The Pantheon is under attack. The actual Pantheon, Dasha's most sacred temple, just caught hands while he was out here making deals. And the fury that crosses his face could melt steel because someone just kicked down his front door while he was away. Wings out. No hesitation. Jingwei's glow rips from his back and he's airborne before anyone can say goodbye. And when he arrives, the damage is already done. Someone's been turned into a crime scene on the temple floor. Ningxuan lands at the Pantheon steps, and the panic in his body language tells you everything. The elder fills him in. The attacker was someone dressed in all black who ambushed the temple and nearly cleaned house. But thankfully, the Bull Demon King's cardmaster managed to drive the intruder off before permanent damage was dealt. The injured fighter holds up a burning fragment as evidence, and Ningxuan's already piecing together who's responsible. Look at the wounds on this man's face. Glowing embers still embedded in his skin like the attacker left a signature on purpose. Ningxuan opens his palm and golden energy sparks across his fingers because he's already preparing for what comes next. The verdict is unanimous. The attacker was definitely from the outer demon cult. These lunatics just declared war on Daiza's doorstep, and Ningxuan is livid. They actually had the nerve to walk into his temple and swing first. So he makes the call that changes everything. Issue a global announcement, rally every nation on Blue Star, unite against the outer demon cult. He confirms that Ji Ting and Guma are already on board with Dasha, which means he built a 3-nation coalition before most people finish breakfast. The elder raises the one question that still has teeth. Will Liang from Shiting actually agree to this? Because that man doesn't exactly hand out his trust like candy. But Ningxuan doesn't flinch. He says Liang will absolutely agree because he's about to go help him personally. Right now, This kid is leaving to deal with the cult infiltrating Liang Er's fight like he's running a delivery service for international military aid. But before he leaves, he hands over 3 god cards, backup firepower in case the cult tries round 2 while he's gone. 3 cards, 3 summoned deities on standby. This kid just left his elder a panic button with divine intervention loaded into it. Meanwhile, back at the arena, Liang Er is cradling his injured partner and the blood on his suit tells you this fight stopped being friendly a while ago. The enemy commander grins and calls for a quick finish because dragging this out would be beneath him apparently. He tells them not to waste any more time, and that smirk is the face of a man who's never been punched hard enough. Because his side rolled out 2 gods, a fallen angel with a blood mark and a crowned dark deity who looks like he owns the underworld's penthouse. And on their team, the fire warrior and the armored swordswoman are standing ready with weapons that could level a city block. The crowd is losing it because Liang Er, the guy everyone thought was untouchable, is getting completely outclassed in a 2-on-1 slaughter. Both enemy cardmasters walk forward together like executioners clocking in for their shift, but Liang Er looks up with murder in his eyes and swears that even if he dies today, he's dragging both of them down with him. The opponents laugh it off. They're taunting a wounded man and enjoying every second of it because bullies always punch hardest when someone's already on the floor. Then the Papal Knight freezes because he hears something that shouldn't be here. His entire posture shifts from cocky to concerned in half a heartbeat, and the name leaves his mouth before he can stop it. Ning Xuan. Our boy touches down in the arena with both wings spread wide in a face that says everybody here owes him an explanation. The crowd goes wild wondering if he's actually about to jump in, but the rules say outsiders can't enter the arena mid-match. One of the tournament officials confirms it. Outsiders physically cannot step onto the fighting platform. The papal commander barely hides his rage and tells Liang Er he's lucky because the person they actually wanted dead just showed up voluntarily. Ningxuan walks toward the arena like rules are a suggestion and physics is something that happens to other people. Liang Er watches him approach, and for the first time tonight, that tension in his jaw loosens just slightly. Because Ningxuan just announced to the entire stadium that from this moment on, Shiting Nation and Dasha are allies. And Liang Er accepts without a word because when someone shows up to pull you out of a coffin, you don't negotiate the terms. Ningxuan's stat panel blinks to life. 2 god card draws, 2 support card draws, 40% god affinity. Those numbers looked modest a few episodes ago, but right now they're about to ruin someone's evening. He opens the card selection and 3 options float in front of him like a gotcha banner nobody else on Blue Star has access to. He picks his card without a second of hesitation because this idiot already knew what he was pulling before he opened the menu. First priority though, he slaps a healing card onto Liang Er's partner, and the glow starts stitching her back together on the arena floor. She pushes herself upright on the steps, bloodied but breathing, and that card just bought her a second life she wasn't supposed to have. Now it's 2 against 2. Liang Er and Ningxuan standing shoulder to shoulder on the same platform for the first time. Liang Er warns him that the opponent's teamwork is razor sharp and these are not fighters who make mistakes. Ningxuan just smiles and says they have no reason to lose. The confidence on this man is either genius or delusion, and I genuinely cannot tell which. The Papal Knight takes the bait and announces that since Ningxuan volunteered to die, he'll gladly arrange the funeral. But Ningxuan hits him with a look that says you'll understand soon enough, and I need to know what he's planning because that face is terrifying. The draw system activates again, pulling a god card live in front of every nation watching. All 4 fighters stare each other down across the arena, and you can feel the temperature of this match shifting. Here's the problem, the sun god and the sea god counter each other's elements, so he needs to pull something that breaks that stalemate. The card pool fans out, and he's hunting specifically for a fire attribute goddess to pair with Apollo and tip the scales. A card erupts out of the pile wrapped in a pillar of lava like the gacha system itself just caught fire. And the goddess who emerges from that card has flames in her hair, fire behind her eyes, and an attitude that says she was born to burn things down. The enemy gods hover overhead looking at their new opposition, and for the first time tonight, the numbers are even. Apollo and the fire goddess stand side by side, and the elemental synergy between them is borderline unfair. Double fire against a water and darkness comp. She glances at the battlefield and asks if there are only 2 enemies. The disrespect in that question alone could end a lesser man. Ningxuan asks her respectfully to lend her strength, and this might be the most polite thing he's done all series. Apollo warns them both, these 2 opponents are extremely powerful, and nobody should get careless. But the fire goddess launches forward mid-sentence because she heard enough talking about 3 words ago and chose violence instead. The sky turns orange. That is not a fireball. That is a second sun being born inside a coliseum. The Dark King stands his ground and grins through the blast because apparently getting nuked is just a minor inconvenience for him. The fire goddess calls him out for being arrogant, and honestly she's right, but also she did just detonate the atmosphere, so the pot is calling the kettle scorched. Then this absolute creep leans in and tells her she's beautiful enough to become his wife. Mid-fight. He's proposing mid-fight. Would you try to rizz up a woman who just threw a nuke at you? This god has 0 survival instincts and maximum audacity. Wrong answer. She detonates like a star going supernova, and the entire arena is bathed in flames. Full battle form activated, crimson armor, fire whipping off every surface of her body, and an expression that promises someone is about to stop existing. The Dark King braces himself because he finally realizes the thing he was flirting with is the single worst matchup for his element on the entire planet. Fire serpents coil around her like living weapons waiting for the command to feed. Those fists are wrapped in enough heat to melt the arena itself, and she has not even started trying yet. She closes the distance and delivers a flaming haymaker that drives the Dark King straight into the floor like a tense stake. He staggers back, and for the first time this fight, the smug look is completely gone from his face. He screams that she's insane, completely unhinged, fighting with zero regard for her own safety, and those burning eyes lock onto him one more time because she took that wife comment personally. She roars that anyone who dares insult this Shah's goddess has chosen death. Her fist connects with his crown, and the impact sends shockwaves across the entire arena. That is the sound of a god getting humbled. His card hits the ground smoking and cracked, which means one of the enemy gods just got sent back to the bench permanently. But the fallen angel is still standing, black wings spread wide, staring down Apollo like this fight just entered its second phase and nobody's leaving this arena clean. Apollo's got his eyes locked on the fallen angel, and that expression is pure concentrated disrespect. He launches across the arena with the fire spear leading like a heat-seeking missile with a personal vendetta, and the two gods collide in a shower of sparks so violent the arena itself flinches. Apollo straight up tells this fallen angel he's nothing, a discount deity who shouldn't even be breathing the same air as a sun god, and this winged clown spreads wide and fires back like he didn't just watch his partner get sent to the Shadow Realm 2 minutes ago. So Apollo points that flaming spear directly at his face because apparently words weren't convincing enough. The fallen angel howls back with arms open like he's performing at a concert instead of fighting for his life. And honestly, this man needs better priorities. Meanwhile, the enemy team's human fighters take one look at this divine cage match and collectively decide that running is their new favorite sport. But Ningxuan isn't watching the fight anymore because something just activated in his hands, and whatever it's showing him is bad. The Jiting rep catches it too. One of the opponents slipped the net during all that chaos. And when Ningxuan puts it together, his face drops because those nations didn't just lose a tournament match, they've been invaded from within. The official scoreboard flashes, Shiting and Da Xia take the W, but the celebration lasts exactly 0 seconds because an emergency broadcast overrides the arena with a territorial map that makes everyone's blood freeze. The Viking nation is gone, not defeated, consumed. Black corruption has eaten every inch of their territory like it was an appetizer. The desert nations follow, nothing but a churning void of darkness where millions of people woke up this morning. Then Europe goes dark, same pattern, same death. And the map is starting to look like someone poured tar across an entire hemisphere. All 4 conquered nations have been forcibly merged into one superpower called Shen Yao, and their combined landmass is completely stained black. The crowd can barely process what they're watching because this stopped being a tournament about 4 announcements ago. And the fear on that woman's face is asking the question nobody in the stadium wants answered. What happens when that thing finishes eating? Look at Ningxuan's fist right here. That tremble isn't fear, it's the kind of rage that needs a target immediately. The golden mark on his forehead flares and something clicks behind his eyes, because he recognizes what that black mist actually is. It's the heavenly demon, a living entity that's been feasting on entire civilizations. Back at the Pantheon, the divine temple of Da Xia, where god statues line a staircase that literally leads to heaven, the war council begins. The world map goes up and the diagnosis is terminal. 0 life signs detected inside Shen Yao territory. Every city buried under black fog. The elder stares at that map, and for the first time this man who's survived everything looks like he doesn't have an answer. And this girl has been crying since she arrived because someone held the line against those monsters so she could retreat, and he's probably gone now. So Ningxuan does what he always does when the world falls apart. He starts pulling god cards with a hulking earth deity already looming behind him like a living mountain with an axe problem. 3 god draws, 3 support draws, 60% affinity. Those stats look decent on paper until you remember the opponent just ate 4 countries for breakfast. He runs the math out loud and the conclusion is simple. The enemy's national power is about to skyrocket and they could come knocking any second. The full pantheon stretches before him in all its divine glory, and honestly this place looks like it was specifically built for exactly this kind of apocalyptic moment. Ningxuan, the elder, and the girl stand together, and the look they share is the universal expression for we are in way over our heads. They push through the great red doors and the sky beyond confirms what everyone suspected. Because 3 colossal war machines are floating above their temple like the final boss showed up at your front door before you even finished the loading screen. A pillar of divine energy slams into the city plaza and the message arrives in person. Shen Yao has officially declared war on all 3 remaining nations. Is this the most lopsided declaration in Blue Star history? 3 guesses. The ice mecha steps forward, and this thing is built like it was engineered by someone who wanted to give nightmares to other nightmares. The brackets go live: 1 merged superpower versus 3 independent nations. The math here is not encouraging for anyone on our side. The Jiting prince turns with the most important question of the night. So what's the move? And the plan they land on is equal parts desperate and insane. Ningxuan goes to recruit backup while these 2 hold off a god-tier army alone. He tells them to survive until he gets back, and that promise carries more weight than anything else he said all series. The 2 of them watch him go, and you can feel how heavy that silence hits. But then this prince cracks a grin and tells the enemy to bring it because he'd rather go down swinging than live boring. Genuinely the hardest attitude adjustment we've seen. Ningxuan tears through what looks like an interdimensional expressway made of starlight, burning every second he has left. And the moment he reaches the divine realm, he drops every ounce of pride and begs every god who can hear him to please intervene. They answer. Every last one. The full roster of Daya's divine pantheon assembles behind this kid like the most absurdly stacked raid group ever formed. The Earth God speaks first, and his message turns this from bad to extinction level. The heavenly demon is actively digesting 4 nations worth of power, and once it finishes, Ningxuan's response is immediate and honestly kind of unhinged. He throws his fist up and says they're going back to fight right now. But back on the ground, things have already fallen apart. The knight is coughing blood and barely staying vertical, because those 3 mecha gods have been doing exactly what you'd expect 3 mecha gods to do when left unsupervised with 2 exhausted fighters. She's on the ground with blood running down her face, and this is genuinely hard to watch because we cannot afford to lose her right now. The red mecha scans her and flags her status as critical, and decides to execute the finishing blow because mercy isn't anywhere in that thing's code. That palm charges up enough energy to delete someone from existence, and it's aimed point blank at a girl who can't even stand. Then a column of golden light rips through the arena ceiling, and someone lands between them with a shield already deployed. The killing blow detonates against that barrier, and the entire arena goes white with divine fire. The knight looks up through his own blood and starts smiling like a fool because he knows exactly who just arrived. Ningxuan stands over both of them in full divine form, white robes, golden aura, the complete celestial package, and tells them the rest is his problem now. The 3 mecha gods regroup overhead, and for the first time this fight they're looking at someone who actually belongs in their weight class. They unload everything simultaneously, and every single round stops dead against a golden dome that wraps the wounded like the universe itself said absolutely not. And from inside that shield he calls them exactly what they are: parasites that feed on the hearts of people, then asks with genuine disgust if things like them even deserve to use the word divine. That might be the coldest line in this entire manhwa, and I will die on that hill. He drops into stance and divine power erupts off him in every direction because this man is about to cash a check the entire pantheon co-signed. A golden hand the size of a building materializes above all 3 mechas, and they realize approximately 1 heartbeat too late that they picked the wrong planet. The seal fires and catches every single one of them inside a blast radius that redefines overkill. Everything detonates, and for one glorious violent second the arena becomes a star-going supernova. But something crawls out of that wreckage, and it's not any of those 3 machines, it's something older, darker, and infinitely worse. The heavenly demon drops every disguise and reveals its true body, a tower of living shadow with veins of red lightning and eyes that promise extinction on a planetary scale, and has the nerve to lean forward and ask Ningxuan what he could possibly have left to fight with. Bro ate 4 nations. The confidence isn't unfounded. But Ningxuan doesn't flinch. He raises his hand and says the demon forgot something crucial. It starts at the Pantheon, the Elder and Daisha's strongest, setting aside every grudge and every border they've ever drawn. It continues in the ruins, ordinary people who've lost their homes, their cities, everything, still choosing to look up instead of give in. And in the broken streets where survivors gather together with nothing left except each other. Even across the farmlands and the villages, people feel the call in their bones and answer it without hesitation. From space, the planet itself starts glowing because this isn't one nation praying anymore. It's every living soul on Blue Star. Every ounce of that collective faith channels into one person, and the divine energy wrapping around Ningxuan right now could fold reality in half. The seal on his forehead blazes into a full sun emblem as the system confirms what everyone can already feel. He opens his eyes, smiles, and addresses the heavenly demon one last time, then launches skyward with a divine seal behind him so massive that daylight becomes optional in the arena. The seal slams directly into the demon from above, and you can see the darkness splintering apart under a power source it never once accounted for: human unity. Golden light reigns across every corrupted territory on the planet, burning away the black fog like sunrise melting frost off glass. And in the aftermath, 2 people hold each other in the rubble and cry because they survived something that should have been the end of everything. Ningxuan floats above the clearing sky and makes a promise that from this day forward, Blue Star will never know war again. And the planet answers, wrapped in rings of golden light, whole again, breathing again, and finally at peace.